Good evening, all. How are you doing on this fine evening? It's New Year's Eve. I'll be honest, it kind of slipped my mind. How are you doing on this fine? So we arranged this, and I didn't even consider that you might have something better to do. Fortunately, you don't.
Nope.
You fucking nerd sitting inside talking about video games with me, another fucking nerd. How are you
Yeah.
doing on this fine New Year's evening?
I'm very well, thank you, Ed. I am one of the Grinches who finds Christmas just awful. So I've been working and pretending that Christmas isn't happening. So we've got through all the family, so that's been good. We've gone round, done the rounds, and done all of our family responsibilities. And I'm very much looking forward to the world getting back to normal. So bar humbug to all of you. I hope you had a miserable time.
Great. Thanks for coming on and being a dickhead. Glad to see that. Yeah, really appreciate it, bud. We've got some of the usual faces here. We've Brian is Hoop Jones. Good to see you, Brian. Orsa's here. Stop saying those things because you're spoiling my joke. Skirmishers in their own shameful tier. That is probably necessary. I haven't got it on here, but it is necessary. Anthony, happy New Year to you, Anthony. It must be New Year where you are. Hope you're doing well. Get some rest. And Martin, happy New Year as well. What armies are you focusing on next year? Do you want to say it on 3? The army that we're both thinking of doing?
Yep.
1, 2, 3.
Empire.
Bretonnian. What?
Well, no, so Bretonians, so what I'm doing is, Ed and I have been talking about this, is we're both very much on board with a undead Bretonian army.
Yeah.
I'm obviously a little bit further ahead of you, Ed, in that I've already got an undead army.
That's true.
Paint a few more bony horses, and then I'll basically be done. But I've written a list. I've got most of it there, and Santa has been generous enough to give me all the Black Knights I need that I can turn into Knights of the Realm. But my main focus for 2025, once that's done, which I'm hoping should January, February time be done, I will be focusing on the Empire.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
Are you going to do Undead Empire? Or are you going to do actual
Empire? And I'm going to start a campaign to make state troops great again, because I love a challenge. So that's the plan.
All right, we'll have a chat about that off stream then. That sounds good. Who else we got? Martin. I can't remember if we said Martin. Oh yes, because what armies are we focusing on? That rat bastard is here. Good evening. Sorry to hear about your game, but you'll win the next one. I believe in you. Richie's here as well. Happy New Year. Happy New Year to you. You must have something to do. You seem like you'd be celebrating the New Year's evening, I'm sure. Got better stuff to do than watch tier lists. Matthew's here, dragged along S tier.
Hell yeah.
Dragged along is so bad that it's what we've named the worst tier. And we'll get to that in a second because there is some naming conventions we've gone for. Orcboy Phil has been here for 2 hours. You are on military time. It's like you were really scared that you'd get a full dressing down that you were here that early. So fair play to you.
We should have opened the stream early and
just chilled.
Phil could have experienced 15 minutes of me trying to mess around with my background to try and work out why my face disappears whenever I put my background on.
And a surprising amount of time of me making these little thumbnails, because it turns out the thumbnails, when there's 74 of them, I think it is, take a long time to do. It's a fairly disgusting quantity of them.
You've done well.
All right. Given that it is New Year's Eve, we are starting off with a little bit slower numbers. That's absolutely fine, not a problem. But if I could implore you all to give the video a thumbs up, that does help the algorithm, help us get rolling. Because obviously these tier lists typically do reasonably well. Hey, the Winslow's here. Thank you for pointing out that I didn't put a time in there, Winslow. Appreciate you, my helpful butler. So I pinged everyone again. Lewis has green face confirmed. Oh, because of green skin. I was really worried you did something racist there. I was like, wait, what? Yeah.
I'm going to finish 2024 on a bang, Ed.
Yeah. Winslow says, excited to see how we can spark controversy discussing USRs. Here's the thing. I think this might be the most controversial of all of the tier lists, because this is stupid. You suggested this when you were a little bit drunk. I agreed to it when I was sober, so I'm the one who's to blame here.
It's entirely your fault.
And when I was sat doing this an hour and a half ago, I was like, why are we doing this? This is an interesting proposition. So it's New Year's. We're going to have a little bit of fun with it. We will put them roughly where they need to go. We might not spend all that long. For example, well, actually, that's a bad example. Breath weapon. It's a breath weapon. There's not a huge amount to talk about. It might just go straight into one of the tiers. I'm going to ignore that comment, Matthew, because you're ruining the one joke I have planned for the stream. Perfect. So
ruined by several people now already.
we've got S is straight fire. These are incredible. You want this universal special rule whenever you can get it. Amazing. Also, everyone who is here goes into straight fire tier. Panda to the viewers. Panda. We've got A for always good. You're not like building around it, but it's great. You love to have it. Nothing wrong with this. B is, it's pretty good. As we all know, pretty is spelled with a B, purely to work on the tier list. C is kind of crap, but it's not actively harmful. You're like, it exists, sure, but it doesn't stop me from doing anything. And then dragged along is a rule that actively makes your army worse because you have it. There are a surprising amount of rules that go into this level on the tier. Yeah. We'll see how this one goes. We'll see. So what we're going to do is we're going to summarize what each one does. And do you want me to summarize them? Because there's a lot of words on there, and then we'll trade off putting them in. So what I'll do is I'll summarize it, and then we'll alternate who highlighting a book. God,
I have the highlights ready, Ed. Don't you worry.
No, that's fine. But if I just maybe I summarize them, and then we take turns to talk about whether we think it's a good rule, a bad rule, where we put it, and then the other person chimes in. That's the new format.
Done.
So ambushes. You deploy them off the board. You roll a dice. On a 1 to 3, the unit doesn't come in. On a 4+, it comes in the compulsory move phase, so it can't charge. It counts as moving as well. It has to be placed outside of 8 inches of enemy models, but you still get to move. You can't march though, and you can't come in on turn 1. How do you feel about ambushes?
Broadly rubbish. There are situations where this could be useful, so I don't think it's in the dragged along tier. I think it's in kind of crap or cinder crap.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you, that rat bastard. The best or / worst initiative values. I feel like that's like an April Fool's one. So we start off with initiative 1, and 1 goes right down in F tier. But initiative 10, that goes in S tier. It would be a fast tier list. That's for sure. Thank you very much. So you think it goes in C tier? There are some ways that you can buff it up. If you have, there's a few characters now like Kicknick who've been printed. You can add on -1. I still don't like it as a rule, but you're right, it's not actively harmful. You usually don't have to choose to put stuff in ambush. So C for sign it kind of crap. Yeah, there are some niche cases you might want to go with it, but it's ambushes is a rule that could be good if it was given to models that can actually use it well. Yeah. What you want is like units of, I don't know, Iron Drakes with ambush, just coming in behind their opponents and gunning them down.
Yes,
that's the basically you need good ranged units to
powerful
make a difference.
Units,
yeah. All right, Armor Bane. This is a nice easy one. When you roll a 6 to wound, a natural 6, so not affected by modifiers, you increase the AP of that attack by the number. It's usually AP1, can be AP2, and these do stack. I think, yeah, it's just pretty good. Yeah, I'm not upset to have it.
But when it does, you're never upset that it does happen.
So I'm going to say something that is going to sound hypocritical when we get to a line further down. You can't rely on rolling 6s to do all your damage. Like, if it happens, you're happy. But if it doesn't, it kind of sucks, you know? So Armor Bane just goes into the pretty good tier.
Bosh.
Yeah. Richie with miners is going to happen to the meta at some point. I still think those small units of miners in the expeditionary force are pretty spicy. I like the concept. Feels good to have on a model, great for stomps. That's a very good point. If you have on a weapon, it's sure. If you have it on a model and you get the effect on any impact hits or stomps as well, that does feel pretty spicy. And then if you've got it on a rune priest as well, it's great because it gives you, you're shooting crossbows at a dragon and you're like, oh yeah, by the way, you get no armor save on any of these wounds.
Ninja Steve.
Yeah, I think he's allowed to abuse me. Does anyone see the light glinting off Ed's chin as it reflects off Lewis's head? Best rule is Motley Crew, easy to keep track of and never confusing. You see that this is good. Little bit of learning for any of our American viewers who some Americans get it, but some Americans are new to the concept. This is something called sarcasm. It's where you make a sentence that is a joke, but it's framed as the truth. I guess that's the way that I would explain that.
I thought it was irony that Americans didn't understand, not sarcasm.
I think it's deliberate. I think it's specifically Alanis Morissette. Is she American? I don't even think she's American. No. I'm not Googling it. We've got chat. Chat, is Alanis Morissette American? She sounds like she's English, actually. I think she's one of ours.
You're just doing her down now.
Or maybe she's like Welsh. Someone will tell us. Someone will tell us. Motley Crew, my favorite rule. Don't even try to at me. I have 4 different saves. Yeah, Motley Crew's really good. We'll talk about that one in detail. We've got Armored Hide. This is the inverse of Armor Bane. It's not. I'm talking rubbish. It's just you have a better save if you've got Armored Hide. It's like armor, but it stacks with armor. Cool.
I'd say always good. If you've got it, great, and it always applies. So I'm happy with that.
Yeah. I think it's just fine for me personally, because it's rare that it pushes you up to a point where it matters. So Cold One Knights, it gets you to a 2-up save, and that's great. But most of the time, it's just like on Lizardmen, it gets you to. I think you've got light armor, and I want to say you've got light armor and armored hide on the Saurus, which you could just give them heavy armor or something along those lines. So I think for me, it's like, yeah, it's there, it's fine, but it's not incredible.
Yeah, fair enough.
Canadian. Thanks all. Americans, we apologize for maligning your use of irony. You know irony. Armored Hide is what Dragon Ogres tick. So that is true. Those are two Dragon Ogres and Stags. That's a very good example. But then you're kind of going, well, if they just had good armor in the first place, they'd be... You know what?
I think it's always good at. I think if it's there, it's always an improvement to your armor.
The chat's passionate about it, and this is one of those tier lists where I think we should just go for as much community engagement as possible, because it's kind of just like they're all kind of whatever. They're just rules. So we'll be leaning heavily on you, chat. I think this evening to give us your opinions. We'll whack them in. Do our best. Getting a 6-up save on the wizard. Yeah, that's the bit that I don't care about. That's right to the man. Okay, so that was Armored Hide, and now there's Breath Weapon. So let me set the stage. This weekend just gone on Sunday, round 3. Whoever wins the game between me and Richie wins the RTT. And I don't want to charge this Dwarf Lord with a big D6 damage axe, because that's bad for my dragon. I get my dragon into the flank, and it's the Dark Elf dragon, and it has a breath weapon, which is strength 4, ignores armor saves. This kills dwarves incredibly well. I get 4 partials. Sorry, I get 4 direct hits and 8 partials. I roll really well. I think I get like 9 hits, and then I kill 3 dwarves, and then I get charged because I mispositioned. I'm just going to put it in like kind of crap.
Yep.
It's rare that you want to use a breath weapon.
Yeah. So given anyone that's used a zombie dragon will know that for some reason the zombie dragon's breath weapon is just objectively worse than everybody else's. So it definitely sits in kind of crap from the vampire.
Is it like strength 2 AP2 or something?
Oh, honestly, it's crap. I don't even use it. And obviously there's a lot of situations, especially if you're running it on a dragon, where you're either marching or charging. You've come up with a situation there where you didn't want to charge and you were close enough that a normal move would get you in range to do the breath weapon. But there's so many steps. It's just, yeah,
onwards. It's not ideal. Pestilent Breath, strength 2 AP3. That's not ideal. It's not the worst.
Yeah, but you got to think you're probably only going to get 4 or 5 hits with it, aren't you? So wounding on 5, you might get 1 through.
Yeah. Oh, there we go. The Troll Hag breath weapon causes panic. That's very fair. That's very fair. Winslow says breath weapons are bad because I can't use them. Edward White Lion hater, close order. I like that order is my surname when I'm playing this character. I mean, I positioned it as well as I could in terms of getting the damage out, and it still only killed 3 dwarves. And I don't even think I rolled particularly poorly. Like, I rolled low on the wounds because I should have been wounding on 4s, but I rolled high on the partials. I think you just kill like 3 or 4 dwarves every time. You're like, this is the thing that happened. Neat. But
if you could use it in to stand and shoot, Like once units finish charging, move on
Yeah.
it. Then I think we're talking then.
That would be very funny. Okay, chariot runners. This usually, in fact, always, I think, is on a skirmish unit. And basically, chariots can see through skirmishers with chariot runner, and they can move through them. So basically, you get to charge through chariot runners. That sounds incredible, right?
Yeah.
How would you feel about it?
I just don't know. I haven't seen it enough to judge it, really. I mean,
Exactly.
pretty good,
Exactly.
I suppose. What combination? It's a very specific set of circumstances that have to occur for that to be necessary, a rule that you would ever use. Although I guess if you've got a chariot heavy army, which again, there's not many of them, and you've got your skirmish screen, charge through it, that's kind of great. But yeah.
So, because of the context of we don't see it, nobody uses it, nobody plays chariots en masse, I'm putting it in kind of crap.
I could get along with that.
The rule's not bad, but it's just like it doesn't get used, so I can't say that it's pretty good.
Yep.
And that's final. Then we have Cleaving Blow. Cleaving Blow is not
a universal special rule, eh?
No, but it's in like 7 books or something like that. So if you roll a 6 to wound against infantry, heavy infantry, light cavalry, heavy cavalry, not monstrous infantry or cavalry, which I learned recently, which feels weird given that Killing Blow kills those as well. They take a wound with no saves. So it's baby Killing Blow. Yeah.
I mean, it's just Armor Bane with extra guff, isn't it?
It's conditional Armor Bane.
Could they have not just given all those units Armor Bane 4 or something?
Or Armor Bane 2. Like, Armor Bane 2 would be fine. I'm going to put it, I think, in Cleaving Blow.
Yeah,
in Cleaving Blow.
It's pretty good. It's with Armor Bane. It does exactly the same thing, basically, doesn't it?
Yeah. So, Tiggity says it's a good rule. There just aren't enough units with it. There's also not enough units that you'd want to use it against that you'll end up using it into. So, like, you'll have it, and sometimes it'll come up, and you're like, oh, hell yeah. But again, it's 6s to wound, and you just don't roll that many. But it's like Armor Bane. It's worse than Armor Bane because people aren't playing a lot of infantry. But it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's the reason that I don't run great weapons on my Graveguard, for example.
Yeah, but you're wrong for that.
Well, I like the extra armor. The extra armor's better, and it actually means that if you roll those 6s, which realistically, if your Graveguard are fighting anything big and tough, you're going to end up needing the 6s anyway, so you might as well go for it.
But if you're fighting anything big and tough, you don't get the Cleaving Blow. That's the problem.
No, that's a good point, yeah.
Yeah. Close Order. This is the Close Order formation. It is S tier. Are we going to explain what it does? No.
Why is this a special rule?
Countercharge. This is if you are charged, if you as a unit with countercharge, which is basically only on cavalry, but there is, a couple of chariots that have it, which is my favorite place for it. You may declare a countercharge reaction, which is you have to be outside of their minimum move. So if they're right up against you, you can't countercharge.
Yeah.
But you countercharge, you move D3 plus 1 inches directly towards them. This is funny because I've used this against chariots. I had an Iron Demon declare a charge against me. Iron Demons have a movement of 4, so I stopped like 5 inches away. I rolled, I think, a 2 on the D3, so I went 3 inches because it's D3 plus 1, which meant that I got my impact hits into the Iron Demon, and the Iron Demon didn't get impact hits into me because it only moved 2 inches, and I felt so smart. It felt so big brain. I was very pleased with myself. But yeah, you can roll 1 or 2 on the D3. Like a 1 on the D3 does suck.
Yeah.
But you still get, you activate lances. If you go far enough, you get Furious Charge or impact hits if you've got those. It's just a great little rule. I think it's super solid. Where would you put it?
This is boundary between always good and S tier. I think you want it. Basically, if your cavalry don't have it, you're at a massive disadvantage. So it needs to be on your cavalry. It's almost a standard rule that has to be there for you to really consider that unit as something that could be really good. And it undoes so many mistakes or issues, anything like that, where if you get finished charging the wrong way, you can actually just get the, as you say, get the lance bonuses, get the initiative buffs. It's amazing on any heavy cavalry as well that need those lance hits to really do their damage. It makes your cavalry sometimes unchargeable because they don't want to have to fight
100%.
that.
Yeah. It hard carries an entire army of infamy. You're goddamn right it does. It made me want to play Chaos and not even look at Wolves of the Sea or Grand Army, which are objectively better, and instead run 2 to 3 characters on chosen chariots because they have countercharge and impact hits, and I'm like, this is broken. So huge fan of that. Obviously behind Close Order on the tier list, but still pretty damn good. We've got a great one for you. I know I've asked you how you feel about this one. I'm going to ask you the second one. Cumbersome. Weapons with this special rule cannot be used when making a stand and shoot reaction.
Just makes your unit worse. That's in Dragged Along, I think.
There's no upside to this. It fucking sucks. I hate this.
There's not like a +1 to hit if you don't move, or there's nothing to balance it. It's just shit. If you see it on your unit, it's a negative always.
This, and the worst thing about it is not even how it affects your unit in like when they're being charged. It's the rule Ponderous. I can never remember which one's which.
Yeah.
That's the worst thing about it. That's the real crime here. So cumbersome, cool. Detachment. A unit with this special rule can be fielded as a detachment, which means that you can then take regimental units. Neat.
Yeah, I mean, in theory, having supporting units is fun and could be really cool. But unfortunately, units that currently, and maybe this isn't an issue with the rule itself, but take Empire State Troops, for example, the units that currently have it.
Yeah.
Just why?
Given that that's Empire's entire universal special rule.
It's their shtick, isn't it? And it's okay. But I say, in theory, I would be pushing for Bretty Good, to be honest, just because the theory of the special rule itself is great. It's just the current application is meh.
Yeah. Damn. Thank you very much. Beowulf Miniatures gifted subs again. Thank you. That's super, super generous of you. That is, I think, 10 gifted subs there. It is indeed. That's super generous. Thank you. If you did get a subscription there, do come on down to the Close Order Discord. Put in the needs roll channel that you've been gifted a sub, and I will give you the correct rolls. I can apply it on Discord. You can see the VIP section and do all the voting on the things that happen behind the scenes. And that's that. Sorry, you were saying you wanted it in pretty good. I see what you're saying, but it doesn't have any actual units that are...
in the game currently it does nothing, but as a rule, I think it's quite good.
Yes, but in the context of nothing that has it is worth taking. It's a kind of crap it is.
Fine.
That was my logic for what was it as well? Chariot runners. So let's be internally consistent, purely because it suits.
so many consistencies already, Ed.
Hell yeah. Now, Dragged Along. It is going into the Dragged Along tier. What is Dragged Along? Dragged Along is a rule where they don't get to move properly. They replace their movement stat if they're within 1 inch of a friendly unit whose troop type is infantry, that they're not fleeing and has 10 or more models. So the way this interacts is you don't get to charge. So say your movement is 2, your declarable charge range is 8 because it's 2 plus that. Whereas it should be the unit of infantry next to you. Like, it's just poorly written, and hopefully it gets tweaked. Oh, I didn't even see the message at the bottom. Happy New Year. Can't say the whole stream. Have a good one. You too. I hope you have a great year. I've finished with today was my last day at work. I'm doing some life admin, so I will get back to you. I know you sent me a message. I will get back to you by the end of the week as to your proposition, buddy. And Music Theory Wizard says this tier list looks rough for Impetuous. I don't know what you're saying. Surely Impetuous won't go into the Dragged Along tier list. They should just be in infantry. It's madness. Yeah, 100%. They should work the way they used to work, which is you just put the Screaming Bell into a unit of clan rats. And you're like, this is a thing that is good. And now that they're just terrible. Every tier list looks rough for Impetuous. That's 100% true. All right. So then we've got Drilled. Unless it's fleeing, A drilled unit may perform a free redress the ranks maneuver immediately before moving. You can do this when you charge. You can do this when you, I guess, when you fall back. All of those things there. In addition, a drilled unit can march whilst within 8 inches of an enemy unit without first having to make a leadership test, which is not why you take it, but it is just a nice bonus to have. How do you feel about drilled?
You see this taken on a lot of units, and I think for a very, very good reason. It just gives you so much flexibility for that unit. So I think this is just always good. I think if you've got an opportunity to take it, the only downside is you often have to pay points for it. So it's not a rule that tends to be built into the unit, say like countercharge would be.
Yeah.
You tend to have to pay extra for the privilege, but I think a lot of people always will. Give me an opportunity.
So where would you say that it goes?
I think I'd been always good just because of the cost implication of it.
That is, yeah, I'm not sure if I'm too harsh on it. At the start of the edition, I thought drilled was the best thing since sliced bread. And then as I played more games, I was like, it's still pretty good. I think if we get to a point where we play a more infantry dominated game, it gets better. Right now, it's still pretty good, but it's best on infantry because they have the lower movement, so they benefit from it more. And also, dwarves obviously can do shenanigans with drilled. So yeah, I'm very happy to say top of always good. I think that's pretty reasonable. Black Orcs should get drilled. They're underpowered after all. Yeah, I agree. They don't have enough USRs. They can only buy 2 additional ones as well, which is not enough. Yeah, they need additional rules there.
I'd like to be whatever sergeant is that's drilling Black Orcs.
Well, they're very regimented, aren't they? I think it actually kind of fits rules-wise. Yeah. They're the sort of like the heavily armored, quite disciplined orcs. They shut down impetuous in a 6-inch bubble around them, so it kind of fits.
I think that's shutting it down through sheer violence rather than particular regimental skill.
Could be that. Hashtag buff blorks. God, that's a mouthful. We've got Ethereal next. You might have noticed that we're flying along these at a real clip, and you know why that is? Because
600,000.
We've been talking. I think we've been talking for about 20 minutes, and we're only up to E. I'm not worried about the rate we're getting through, but there is a reason that we're going at the rate we're going. Ethereal treat all terrain as open ground. This is one that I forget. So, like very occasionally, someone will charge the Green Knight out of terrain. And I'll be like, cool. They rolled a 1 and a 6. They take the lowest. No. They treat all terrain as open terrain. They can't end their movement inside impassable terrain, but they can pass through it. And they can only be wounded by magical attacks, but they can't join non-ethereal units.
Yeah. I think you see it a lot on characters, and I think it's the not being able to join non-ethereal units that just tips it from S tier to always good.
Mm-hmm.
I think you pretty frequently always want it, and it's always a good thing to have, but I'm not sure it's the best thing in the world.
I think, and this is in the context of the game, I think the units that have it, I'd be more tempted to put it in pretty good, or pretty good, I should say. Because can you think of which ethereal units are you taking in your army? A Banshee's great.
Banshee's great?
Yeah. But there are some inherent risks to it. Obviously, ruined by Pillar of Fire. Absolutely hate Pillar of Fire. So you kind of have to take some Spirit Hosts if you want to keep them alive, which is expensive. But you're probably not running Hex Wraiths or the Black Coach, or what other units are there with
some people have been playing around with the Hex Wraith and the Black Coach, actually, since I posted in Discord. Lots of people have been coming forward saying they've done these really cool lists. And actually, it's the sort of rule where the majority of models in your opponent's army will not be able to hurt you. So
here's the thing, it's often paired with undead. And
you die to combat res. But units, if those units have the ability to do 1 or 2 wounds, that's all you really need.
Yeah.
And suddenly you outdo the combat res.
Yeah. Steck says, which ethereal units are you taking? Doesn't the Green Knight have ethereal? That is the ethereal unit. And Matthew has a good point as well. The ethereal, you can't charge and also walk between worlds in the same turn. But you can still walk between worlds. When I was at the RTT on Sunday, Tom, the lovely chap who I did the doubles with, when the first time I met him was at 9:30 on the day. He was there with his Empire, and round 2 he was playing against a high elf player, and he was stood there, and his demigryphs were kicking the shit out of some swordmasters. And then the swordmasters managed to get, like, the embedded sorcerer managed to cast Walk Between Worlds, and he was like, so what does that do? It's like, oh, so it makes the unit ethereal, so I just can't do anything to them. No. And at that point the combat stopped going well for the at that point they got run down by like a solo character on horse that was attached to them. It was very sad.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I think we can come back and change it, but because I don't think it's always good, just because like I wouldn't take a black coach or hex wraiths, but when it is good, it is pretty fucking good. But we can come back and adjust if we need to. Yeah. Sweet. Extra attacks.
Changing the page.
You don't need to for this one. You get more attacks. Oh, there's oh no, it's okay. I was worried I hadn't put Evasive on there. I just labeled, like, I didn't put them in order slightly. Delillo says, thanks for the sub. Yep, thank you very much to Beowulf Miniature Printing. Does run a 3D printing shop. You should check them out. Matthew says Green Knight. God, Matthew, you're late to the party. Come on. We're past that already. Extra attacks. You get more attacks.
Always good.
Yeah. I've never seen a time when extra attacks was bad. That was the most slam dunk that I've ever seen in my life. Perfect. What else we got? Evasive. Once per turn, when this enemy is declared the target during the enemy shooting phase, it may choose to fall back in good order and will flee directly away from the enemy unit shooting at it. And then the unit may continue shooting, but it doesn't get a redirect. So if you're in a wood and you flee behind the wood, they lose their shots, or if you flee out of range, this is a wood elf staple. This is very, very familiar to me, I will say.
I'll let you put it in a category then. It's not something I've played with at all, because I don't have anything as a Vampire Counts player.
I just want to highlight Music Theory Wizard. Don't worry about putting in timestamps. Any good subscriber will watch the whole thing. I appreciate you. I understand that timestamps are useful, and my stance on that is softening. It's time that I don't have, but I may have now that I'm unemployed. However, this is one where I probably won't bother doing timestamps because it's just universal special rules, and I don't want to put 74 in. And also because it's alphabetical, people can work this one out. Like, this is not one where I feel like they need timestamps. But thank you. Have a great evening. Enjoy your New Year's celebrations, if that's what you're up to. I should just add a timestamp for dragging along. Yeah, just one. Just one timestamp. Cool. I think Evasive is always good. I don't think it's quite S tier. And you have to be smart with how you use it. You can definitely flee off the board, or you can flee into a poor position. Yeah. And if you've got Feigned Flight, which means you auto-rally, that really helps. Although I think Feigned Flight is actually only for flee moves. It's not for falling back in good order.
Well, it's fall back in good order, isn't it? So you will rally at the end of your move.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've used the 2 in combination, so I'd have to double-check how that interacts. But yes. I think it's great. There are some risks to it, but the benefits are super high. Your opponent, like, you make it so that your opponent can only get, 22 inches away from you with the Ruby Ring of Ruin. They cast it, and you're like, all right, I'm going to fall back. Oh, hey, I rolled a 3.
Yeah.
Too bad, so sad. Sucks to be you. And because it's a fallback in good order, there's very little risk that you go too far because it's the highest of 2d6. So it's usually pretty consistently like 4 to 5 inches. So I feel good about that one. Evasive feels like it depends a lot on player skill on both sides. That's a super reasonable comment. I think people should just get good. That is the trick to that one.
Because I mean, there's a world where you can fall if you know your opponent's got it, you can force them to fall back in weird directions that screw them over for the next turn. So
yeah. I mean, they get to choose whether they use it, but if you can bait them into it, it definitely helps. And they won't be able to charge because they won't have rallied. So, there's definitely some downside to it, but it's also very funny because you can just be like, hey, I'm going to make your, like, do you want your Wood Elf Lord on Dragon to evasive backwards to avoid some shooting? A lot of the time, yes, but that means you're not then charging me. So that's fun for me. Fast Cavalry. You might say, why is this a universal special rule? It actually makes sense. So if all of the models in the unit are in open order, it can make its quick turn even if it marched. That means at the end, normally for open order, at the end of a move, you get a free, I believe it's a 90-degree pivot.
Yeah.
This, you can march and do it, which is just a great rule. I think, yeah, I think it's always good. I'm never upset to have it.
Happy days.
Absolutely happy days. We are now at a point where we've got a few more people. I will echo my call from earlier. Obviously, it is a slightly lower view stream. If you haven't, please do thumbs up the stream. I would appreciate that. Helps get people's eyes on this, get the ball rolling, all of that good stuff. And yeah, it's also a good time for me to say thank you to my Grail Knight tier supporters, because I do appreciate them. So, oh no, the fireworks have started. But huge thanks to all of the Grail Knight tier supporters. That is Mechanite, Krieghammer, Ginger Steve, Cameron's Battle Reports, Beowulf Miniatures, G Wilder, more Robot Wars content, Chris Mollison, and Greenskin King. Thank you very much for your support. That rat bastard says, just be a skirmisher instead. Just be a skirmisher as well.
Combo.
Yeah. So yeah, skirmishers are good, but sometimes you can't be, like, some very good units of fast cav. Like, one that comes to mind is the Sisters of the Thorn. So they are open order, but what I like to do with Sisters of the Thorn is put them in marching column, march them 24 inches, get a free pivot, then Arcane Urgency them, move them again, and just dance around that 24-inch dispel range of the enemy wizard, and then still throw some javelins, because, you know, for some reason they have a move and shoot poison AP1 weapon as well.
Because why not?
It's just, yeah, they're just so good. They're just so good. Fear is, like, it on paper seems amazing, and then you read it, you're like, okay. If you want to declare a charge against a fear-causing unit that has a higher unit strength, you then have to make a leadership test. If you fail, you can't charge, and you just stay still, and you can't do anything else. If you are in combat with a unit that causes fear and has higher unit strength, you have to take a leadership test. If you fail, you're -1 to be hit, -1 to hit them, which is pretty cool. That is a neat rule. Saved my ass with, what was it? I think it was Cold One Night. Yeah, I charged into a big Minotaur brick, and I had 2 dragons into it. That was it. So at one point, I was making my opponent hit me on 5s instead of 4s, which was quite nice. How do you feel about fear? You're the undead player.
Yeah, pretty good. I think when it comes up, it can be useful. Lots of things have half-decent leadership, so it does sometimes want pairing with necromancy,
Sure.
really, to try and, if you're going to try and play around it, but it's never a rule that you're particularly unhappy to see there. It's the unit strength thing means sometimes it doesn't come up as often as you think it should come up.
Yes.
So it's there, but there's also funny things that don't cause fear that then vulnerable to it. Things like Pegasus Knights, for example, don't cause fear.
That's true.
So they can fail. They can just not charge your.
It's a good job that everyone doesn't play them in Exiles and they're veterans, and they get to re-roll.
Well, there is that, yeah.
And protection from terror, yeah, I like it. I think it's pretty good, because, as you said, unit strength, it doesn't always come into effect, but sometimes it does, and you're like, hell, this is great. Big fan of that. So let's put you in here. Then we've got Feigned Flight. Feigned Flight. If you flee or fire and flee as a charge reaction specifically, it auto rallies at the end of the move. Yep. Amazing.
Always good.
S tier. S tier. Yeah, it's so good. Because what you do is you fire and flee, and then you only get, by the way, can you hear the explosions outside?
Can hear the explosions loud and clear.
That's unfortunate. I might have to mute between talking. It's not even 9 o'clock yet. Come on. So, Feigned Flight. You fire and flee. Fire and flee means you only fall back as if it was a fallback in good order. So it's the highest of 2d6. You then probably are on a horse, so you swift stride backwards if he needs to, and then you auto rally, and you're just like, there is no downside to what I've done here. I am a happy man. Great stuff. Skinwolves don't cause fear either. What the hell? That feels illegal. I didn't realize. 30-man squads of ghouls come at me. Yeah, ghouls are cool. I really like ghouls. But yeah, no, I think straight fire. Absolute winner on the S tier Feigned Flight. Fight in extra rank. This is, you get to make a supporting rank in the back rank. Disclaimer, The only things that have this rule are bad weapons.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Like in theory, great, but
Yeah.
it's not on anything that you'd want it on.
I think pretty good. The best thing you can have it on, in my opinion. So there are 3 things that I'm going to talk about here very quickly. The first is the Skaven giant rats. Before they were nerfed, when they were weapon skill and strength 3, they were nuts fighting in 2 ranks, because they were just like, you could always fight an extra rank. It wasn't if you got charged like spears. It's just, all right, always 2 ranks of attacks. So you just run them like 12, 15 wide and go, here's 30 dice. And it's mediocre, but it's enough. And also the unit costs pennies. Sure. Now they're nerfed, so they're less good, but they're still very cheap. Also, the Skaven Packmasters can have man catchers, I think they're called, which is strength user AP -1 killing blow, which is kind of spicy for a second rank attack at a decent initiative. It's okay. But the one that matters is the ceremonial halberds for the Phoenix Guard, or the whatever the equivalent is for Dark Elves, which is just a slightly worse unit for no reason. They're halberds which fight an extra rank, which is pretty okay.
Tasty.
I don't hate it. Yeah, throwing spears, Savage Orc are good with fighting extra rank on the charge. Yeah, actually, that's fair, because Savage Orcs, or just Orcs in general, have chopper, which means that they are getting some AP, and you can make them biggin, so you can be strength 4 AP1 on the charge, which that's not awful. And they've got frenzy, so you're effectively getting 3 attacks per front model. Yeah, sure. I don't hate it. I can
good. I think that there's some examples where it's really good.
Yeah.
There's other examples like skeletons where you have to pay points, so your unit cost goes up by 20%. Just to have the ability to maybe get 3 or 4 more skeleton attacks.
Here's how good the rule is if you're talking about spears. Ask me if I've ever bought spears for my clan rats.
Have you ever bought
No,
spears?
Of course I haven't. That's a stupid question. What do you mean? They're 4 points a model. I'm not paying an extra point. 25% more. Disgusting. Yeah, great stuff. Fire and Flee. This is you when you can shoot and also run away. That's good. I like it.
It's a good charge reaction, isn't it, to be able to shoot and then flee?
It's the best charge reaction. I'm going to put it into always good. It's not technically always good. You don't always want to do it, but always having the option to do it is nice. And it means that you have flexibility as well. If you want to flee, but you don't want to run too far away, like you can be like, oh god, they're close, I need to flee in swift stride. Or you can be like, I kind of want to move like 6 or 7 inches. I'm going to flee and then see if I need to swift stride.
Yeah.
It's great for that. And also you just get additional shots. Big fan of that. If Skaven got a nerf, at least someone up on high is looking at them. This was very early. This was like, I think a month in or something. They just tweaked a couple of things in the PDFs. Lizardman, the Slan became a monster instead of monstrous infantry, which sometimes. I have run 45 large skeleton with Razor Standard. It was okay. Yeah. That does sound okay. I can't.
Yeah, I think with the skeletons, you just need to go numbers, don't you? At that point, if you're going to rely on weapon skill 2 attacks, you're just going to need to stack them.
Yeah, Undead are one of the few armies that can take big bricks of infantry and put points into them and be like, oh, this is maybe worth the points. So yeah, that's reasonable. First charge. The first time this unit charges, the receiving unit becomes disrupted until the end of the combat phase. So, disrupted, that means you do not get your rank bonus.
Yeah.
That's very good. Do you also... I feel like you also don't get initiative bonuses for charging. Is that correct?
Well, you're charging them, so...
Yeah, but counter-charge.
Oh, if you've all got first charge... I mean, this is the sort of thing where I think the classic example is cavalry charging into...
it's literally just rank bonus.
Yeah. So classic example is cavalry into infantry. We don't see a lot of infantry outside of Undead, where it is incredible rule, and it winds up every time I play Bretonnians.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think in a world where infantry get better, this goes up to always good. I think in the current world, it's in pretty good.
I agree. I think Yeah, we can tweak in rank. Like
Yeah.
we all know, in the actual tier doesn't matter much, but we can change things around. Disrupted is too close to disordered. Yeah, man, I hate that. I hate it when they have the same rule, but like slightly different.
Funny word, yeah.
Starting with it drives me nuts. Reform, redress the ranks. What? Stop making them all start with R. It's the one thing my brain can't grasp in terms of rules. Next up, we have got flaming attacks. Whoa! Yeah!
Woo, I just feel like this just gives your attacks things that your enemies
No.
resist.
You cause fear in swarms and war beasts.
I didn't even know that.
Many
That's
people
how
don't.
often that's come up.
But also, yes, your attacks are flaming. Which does that turn off regen? No, it turns off regen in models that specifically have flammable, which is checks notes, not many. So yeah, this is actively a negative thing to have, which is so dumb. It's worse. Like there's so many armies that have like get a 5-up ward if your opponent has flaming attacks, get a 3-up ward if your opponent has flaming attacks. Looking at you, Empire with your white cloak. So just sometimes flaming attacks are bad, and when I say sometimes, I mean most of the time.
Yeah. If they did like just negate regeneration, then there they are. Then I think that would be that would make them much more takeable, and then you'd have that whole kind of flaming counter flaming counter flaming as like a genuine sort of interaction across the meta. Feels like something you'd have to build for if you relied on regeneration quite a lot.
So. Matthew says stupid flaming ogres. That's funny because at Saffron Slam, Matthew was playing Troll Horde, which is the one time that flaming attacks are like super useful. And his opponent had the banner that gives flaming and also. Do you remember what else it gives?
I can't.
I think it gives like reroll 1s to hit and flaming attacks,
something like that.
The Dragonhide banner, I think it was, and just took it for the rerolls, and then came up against Matthew's Troll Horde. Was like, oh hell yeah, this is pretty neat. I like that. Yeah,
Matthew was feeling confident. Start of that game, halfway through that game, when that ogre unit had eaten most of his army, he was not impressed.
yeah, understandable. Yes, so flammable straight in the bin. Fly. I didn't even put it there. Oh, sorry, that was flaming attacks. Flammable. That also goes straight in the bin, but for the opposite reason, which is like you are one of the 6 units in the game that they were just like, actually, no, fuck your regen. You don't get it. Bullshit, eh? Absolute bullshit. Hit on 2s, reroll 1s, wound on 2s. Matthew, it sounds like you should play an army with better weapon skill. That is a skill issue. You managed to win, but bloody hell made you sweat. Yeah, that's fair. Fly.
Warmed it up a bit.
Fly. So fly, you can move over models and terrain and all of that good stuff. Here's the thing that people don't know about. There's 2 things that people don't know about fly or don't often realize. The first is you cannot be march blocked if you fly. That's just cool.
Yep.
The second is you don't take the downsides of terrain unless you end your move in it. So if you start your move in it, you can just fly out and nobody cares. It's good stuff. You also can't join a unit if you have fly and your opponent and the rest of the unit doesn't.
And they don't,
vice versa, yeah. So I think fly, always good.
I was moving towards S tier, to be honest. Just because the flexibility it gives you, you can't be stuck anywhere. I mean, you can, obviously, if they fill the board or whatever in the spaces that you could move to, but it just gets so much more maneuverability. Yeah, fly should never be able to be combined.
There are 2 rules we probably shouldn't allow fly to be combined with. Swift stride and large target. Because large target means you can see the things behind the screen. Richie and I had like 3 or 4 minutes of just shuffling his units around because he was like, no, you can't charge me. And I was like, well, I can because I'll just get in here with a wheel and I'll make a disorder charge. But my base can fit there and I can see you.
Yeah.
So then we just had to do some rejigging. But fly and being able to charge long distances is some bullshit, basically. Frenzy sounds great. Gives you an extra attack. Ooh,
nice.
Yeah. And if the majority of the unit is frenzied, they auto pass fear, panic, and terror. That's cool, but you have to charge if there's at least 1 model in there that's frenzied. And if the majority of the units are frenzied, it can't flee, and it has to overrun. It can't make a restraint test. And your mount can never be frenzied.
Yeah, it's the having to declare charge. It just kills it, doesn't it? I mean, there's units where it's okay because the extra tax is quite nice and they'll smash into stuff and destroy it. But the lack of control of your model, and it's even like obviously the not being able to test a restraint or anything like that after a combat's finished as well. So even if you do kill the thing you want to kill, you end up in places you don't want to anyway. So they really restrict it. So I don't know whether the extra attacks is enough to take it from kind of crap to pretty good, but probably kind of crap.
I'm biased. I think it's crap. I hate Frenzy. There is a couple of times when Frenzy's good, and that is when you have got something that's super cheap and you just want to turbocharge its output. Like, I'm a big fan of Flail Marauders with Mark of Khorne in Warriors of Chaos. So they're like 90 points or something for 10 attacks at Strength 5, AP 2 with Armor Vein. You're like, you know what? Sure. And the weapon skill 4 because the Marauders. All right, sweet. Yeah. I'll try it. The other time is Battle Lust, when you put Frenzy on a unit, but only when you want to. Like, you know you want to charge because you do it straight before you declare charges. So that's perfect. You also lose Frenzy if you lose combat. So it's not even just like a straight up +1 attack. But yeah, I think kind of crap is on there. Daniel says, late on the stream, sorry, just got drilled. Can't use drilled and countercharge and marching column to give cavalry with these rules the ability to march with limited downsides. You absolutely can do that, and you can also combo it with, double moving and do really fun stuff there. But I just don't think that it's like, it's solid, but it's just not on the tier of like countercharge, which is in some places absolutely backbreaking. So it's like top of always good in my eyes, but it gets better if there's more infantry.
If you can combo it with other things, it gets a lot better.
Yeah. Build an army around flying. The Horn will ruin you once a tournament. Yeah. So when I'm looking at flying units, I do give them the side eye, but like, do you have like at least a 6-inch move so I can still play you? Otherwise, we're real sad looking at you, dwarves. With Overrun, how often is being forced to charge such a bad thing? So frenzy baiting is a very big thing. Or I'm going to answer in two parts because you might have meant Overrun. So being forced to charge is terrible because a good player with fast units will just sit at the edge of your charge range and then run away, and they will drag you in a direction you don't want to go, and you are then facing the wrong direction. So that super sucks. And then Overrun, people can bait you. They can make you face in weird angles. So like, you hit a unit that's not like that, it's like that. And then instead of going towards the rest of the army, you just like go off and overrun in an odd way. And you never get to like redirect which way you face, which is super strong in the game at the moment. So I'm not frenzy pilled. I'm a frenzy hater. I think
just that first point in and of itself, just staying an inch within that model's maximum charge range at a weird angle to force them to turn and run off in a completely random direction as you just flee an inch back. They can't possibly reach you. They failed their charge. They're facing in a stupid angle. You get the flank charge off, you kill them, and they lose their frenzy anyway. So it's just, there's not, as you say, a decent player will play around that. If you're playing against someone that's just running slow infantry, maybe you just yeeting everything forward anyway, then perhaps you could use it. But
it's something it's a rule that gets worse the better your opponent is, I think, is a good way to sum that up. Speaking of a good rule, though, Furious Charge. If you charge at least 3 inches, you get +1 attack. Amazing.
Yep, always good.
Always good. I agree. You know how I said we were 27 minutes in and we were only up to E? Huh. I think it's pretty weighted. There's a lot of like Fs, but maybe we ramp this up a little bit. Hatred.
Always
hatred
good.
Is, well...
Oh, no, actually, it's always Hatred X, isn't it? So...
It's usually hatred against a specific thing. So I'm going to say pretty good. Again, if you can get hatred everything or hatred characters, like Royal Clan can have, that's amazing. Then you're just like, cool, I'm re-rolling all my hits into the things that matter. Yep. If it's just like, dwarves have hatred... Oh, no. Yeah, they have hatred goblins or orcs and goblins. You play orcs and goblins to them and you're like, this feels unfair. I hate this. I hate this, and I don't have the special rule.
I hate this as much. My models hate yours.
Yeah. Steck says he was smart and put Swift Stride near the end. I wish it was smart. It's just alphabetical. Don't like hatred as a game rule, makes games inherently hard to balance. Yeah, I think having it on specific armies is a bit of a problem in terms of game balance. Horde, you get +1 rank bonus.
Always good, baby. Always good.
And then it combos nicely with another rule that is right down at the bottom. Howder.
Don't understand it. Dragged along.
This gives monsters chariot rules, basically. So it gives them the firing platform, which is 360-degree line of sight, and the split profile chariots rule. So it's fine. It's just like bottom of pretty good. It just works. It just enables something. Like it's not good or bad. It's just there. But so I don't want to put it in crap because it just enables something to work. Ignores cover.
So this is a rule I thought they had brought across from the 40k rulebook and just left in here by accident.
Yeah, the 5th edition one. So ignores cover. If a model is making a shooting attack, it ignores any hit modifiers caused by partial or full cover. Now, this rule is better than you will think it is because you're probably playing shooting wrong. You've got to remember, if you've got like skirmish units, you provide cover. Like your back models, if they can't see the entire unit they're shooting at, they
get partial cover.
Or if your opponent's unit is like slightly obscured, they get partial cover. People don't don't actually respect the fact that things have cover enough because it's very easy to actually get cover. This rule's cracked. I think it's incredibly good. Like modifiers are the thing that ruin shooting units the most, and I think it is one of the best rules to have on a shooting unit. Like Sisters of Avalon are so good because of this and other things, but they're it's incredible. The best special rule is the one you hide from your opponent until it's convenient to bring up. That's the opposite of what I said, Brian, and I'll thank you to not misquote me. Immune to psychology. That's me reading your comments, you fuck. So immune to psychology. They auto pass any fear, panic, or terror tests. However, if the majority of and it's again, you only get this if you've got the majority of the models in the unit. But if the majority of the models in the unit have the rule, you can't ever flee. And that kind of sucks.
Yeah. As an undead player, sometimes you do just want to flee and you just can't. So anything that takes
one of the joys in life is asking the undead player if they want to respond to your charge. And they go, I can't. And you're like, I know.
Stand there, you dusty thing.
Here's the thing.
Let me hit you.
It is pretty good, though. It's a pretty good rule.
Turning a page.
Cool. Impact hits. We'll talk more about things when we get to the spicy ones. Impact hits. This is if you charge 3 inches or more, you get a number of impact hits. If you're a heavy cavalry, they're at AP2. Heavy chariots, it's AP2. Otherwise, it's not. Undead can still stand and shoot. Impact hits are great. You might think, oh, but it's so hard to get them. Here's the thing. If you win a combat and your opponent gives ground, you can, if it's your turn next, you can test a restrain and still get impact hits. The way you do that, they're here. You're like this. You test a restrain. You change the angle you're at. You charge them. You go the shortest distance. You move more than 3 inches because you've done a fat wheel. Impact hits, baby. Game in the system. Don't hate the player, hate the game. Don't hate either of us, actually. The game's good and I'm great. But yeah, impact hits are so good. They are my favorite son. So I think good. Yeah, always good. I'm never sad to have them. Sometimes
extra attacks, but on steroids sometimes, isn't it?
Yeah, your opponent can play around them. That's true, but you know, just play better to stop them from playing around it. There we go. You did it to a Tomb King player when you killed his Hierophant last night by accident. Oops. Oopsie. Impetuous. Not at the start of turn, which is wrong. I've been playing at start of turn up until about 3 months ago. In the declare charges step, if a unit doesn't declare a charge, you've got to roll, and on a 1 to 3, it has to charge, as long as it's able to.
It's the same as frenzy, basically, isn't it? But you just don't
No.
know then.
It's you don't know, which is somehow worse, and you get no benefit because you don't get the extra attack and you don't get the immunity to psychology. Fuck this rule. I wish it was like a leadership test, because Dragon Princes like 50% of the time being uncontrollable makes me sad. I don't love it, but it is what it is. Killing Blow. Now, if you roll a 6 against infantry or cavalry with this rule,
They
you don't get to make. They don't make an armor save. They don't make a regen. They get to make ward saves, but they do just die. How many infantry characters are you seeing that you really care about killing Blow?
Well, yeah. I think it's up there with Armor Bane, though, isn't it? It's the sort of thing, when you get it, it's kind of like, okay, that's all right, but it doesn't happen often enough.
Yeah, I think Killing Blow is... Yeah, I think pretty good is fair, because of the state of the meta that we're in.
Yeah.
If we were in a more infantry cavalry meta... Yeah, and also you can't get chariots at all. But yeah, I think it's a good rule. It's a good rule. It just doesn't, like, it's not positioned to be taken advantage of as much as I would like. Which units get a 360-degree line of sight? Anything with Horde, Chariots, and Skirmishers. Those are the 3. I don't think there's anything else. Large target. Large target. If you are a large target, you will always be able to see. You can see over the things. You can't see over other large targets, which is a rule that I only found out pretty recently. But if models are on a hill, they can see over you if you're a large target. Again, Richie and I had like a 5-minute sort of dig through the rules, going like, there must be something that explains this. No, you just can. But you also never get cover when opponents are shooting at you, which is not ideal. Blows my mind that large targets aren't +1 to hit from shooting. So they kind of are, because, you know, I was saying like it's super easy to get cover in this edition. They just never get cover, so it kind of balances out.
Yeah, this is assuming everybody who's playing shooting is using the cover rules correctly, which is probably not happening yet.
Yeah.
We'll get there.
Maybe. This is one that I think people will continue to get wrong for a while. But it's okay, because maybe it gets easier soon. Who knows? Large target, I think this is far more of a benefit than a downside. Yes, people can see you, but you're probably a dragon, so you're probably tanky. And you can see them, and that means no matter how they deploy, you can charge the squishy stuff behind them. Almost always. So I'm going to say always good.
Yeah. Happy with that?
Yeah, I think. Yeah, it's solid. I love it. You know what I don't love? Levies. Levies cannot use Inspiring Presence or Hold Your Ground from a BSB. However, they do not cause panic when they break and flee. But apparently, if they are fully destroyed, they still cause panic.
Oh, yes, of course. I noticed that. Yeah.
Yeah. It does have some upside, but it's mostly downside.
Kind of crap.
Kind of crap. Yes. Is it dragged along? I think it's kind of crap. I think that's fair.
I think kind of crap is there, yeah.
Because at least it doesn't cause panic. Yay.
Yeah.
Speaking of rules that are sometimes, in fact, almost always a negative, Loner, a character with a special rule cannot be your general and cannot join a unit without this special rule, and vice versa.
It just bad rule.
Yeah. It makes sense. It's thematic and it's fine, and I don't care that it exists, but you look at it and you're never happy to see it, right? You just be like, I just wish this didn't exist. Matthew says the cheap right not causing panic on a break is good for screens. That's true. Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. We can put it at the top of kind of crap.
Winslow makes a good point. Large target's bad if you're not a flyer. So it's not always good.
That's true. However, I don't see non-flying large targets very often.
Gorgons?
So, yeah, but Gorgons are shit, and I'll die on this hill. But that's a rant for another time. It's a rant for another time. You don't see them because they're bad. Moving along swiftly. Magical attacks. If you've got this rule, your attacks are magical.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
There's some rules that give you bonuses against magical attacks, which are annoying, but a lot of the time it gives you more flexibility.
You'll go to an event, 4 games, you won't even remember you have it. The fifth game, you'll play against either Troll Horde or the Green Knight, and you'll be like, oh, this is good. This is necessary. It does affect how you. Yeah, giant sport are good. It does affect how you sort of look at your list building, because you need some level of magical attacks to deal with the Green Knight, because it's just very good.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just pretty good. It's not always good, but it's pretty good, especially when you're not paying for it. When it's baked in, you're like, yeah, sure, I'll have that.
Nice, yay.
Magic resist. This is a rule that doesn't stack, so you've got to buy it to the level that you want it, or, just have it on a unit. When an opponent casts a spell, not including bound spells, that is something that people get wrong. Yeah. They suffer a modifier to the roll, so effectively, it reduces the amount that someone casts at.
Always good.
What if you're playing against dwarves?
Yeah, but that's one very specific scenario where it doesn't work. I think in all other scenarios, it's there.
I can live with it going in always good.
We have to. Yeah, I think because what it is. Let me just double check. It modifies the roll as well. So not only does it make it harder for your opponent to even cast the spell, it makes it easier for you to dispel it.
That is correct.
You've got your own wizards. So
that is indeed
kind of almost not. It's not like double, but you know what I mean. Like you're moving it.
There's two failure points. Like your opponent could fail to cast, or you could dispel it because it's better there. Yeah. Lamassu Loki, the meanest source of magic resist. That's true. That is very funny. I love it when I just get magic resist on a unit that for like no reason it's just there, and you're like, oh, okay, cool. Casting spells into dwarves and just be like, oh shit, my fireball only went off on an 8, but you've got magic resist 1. Sucks for me, eh? So yeah, I think always good is very fair. Mercenaries. There is a whole table. Mercenaries can't use Inspiring Presence or Hold Your Ground, and they can't be joined by characters from another army list, so only mercenary characters can join their own mercenaries. But it does let you unlock some shit. Like, you can have, for example, dwarf, the Slayer...
Slayer in Empire, yeah.
Yeah, the weird... What are they called?
Dragon Slayers or Doom Slayers.
No, it might be Doom Slayers, yeah. Dragon and Demon Slayers are the ones that existed already in a bad. But they're the ones that are like negative points. If they... Yeah. So I think Mercenaries goes at the bottom of pretty good. I think that's where I could see it, on the basis of if you can build around it, it's cool. And also the new Empire character, he's pretty good with it. He makes you not have the penalties in terms of like the misbehaving mercenary table, which sucks, by the way. Don't roll any 1s at the start of the game for your mercenaries. Yeah. Doom Seekers. Thank you, Matthew and John. Appreciate that. And Low and Hack will make it all better. Yeah, absolutely will. So yeah, I think pretty good, but you kind of need to build around it. You don't just sort of put them in willy-nilly, because then it's a downside to you. Monster handlers. These are, if you've got a monster accompanied by handlers, when they are shot. Is it shot or is it in combat?
You've got there's combat rules where and I've never quite understood this, but it's never come up, so I've never questioned it. The handler adds its attacks to those of the monster.
Huh.
So I'm assuming that doesn't mean the monster gets extra attacks. I'm assuming you just do the hand weapons or whatever.
I think it just means that it makes attacks as normal, but it doesn't have to be ranked up next to it.
Yeah.
So,
and then there's a chance that a unsaved wound on the monster gets put onto the handlers instead.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, sure. I think just bottom of... Yeah. Like, here's the problem. There's nothing good that I want to take that has monster handlers.
Hydra? Does the Hydra still have one in
yeah, but it's not good.
No.
There is nothing good with monster handlers, to be clear. So, yeah. Is that the only thing with handlers? There's a Skaven specific version of it, but that doesn't count. There's the Hydra, there's the Charybdis, both for Dark Elves. Are there any other armies that have monster handlers? I don't know if there is. Did they really just write a universal special rule for an army that's legacy? Let's move on. So
Yeah.
if there is another one, someone will put it in the chat in like
There's the
30
wizard men
seconds.
stuff, isn't there? The
Oh yeah. Great. Can I get in fast and say quick shot is S tier? Yeah, Richie. That's a fair shout. That is a fair shout. But we haven't got there yet.
Oh, Q, behave, settle down.
Monster Slayer is terrifying / great. It's the dragon slaying sword that's the problem. Yeah, I agree. Monster Slayer, if you've got it for free, if you've got it on your unit, such as a Tomb Scorpion or an Ecto Sphinx, that's a good rule. Your opponent has to respect you.
Yeah.
If you're paying 50 points to get Monster Slayer and then you have otherwise a hand weapon, that kind of sucks. I don't love that because you're just fishing for 6s to wound, and they'll also have good weapon skill because they're ridden by a weapon skill 7 like lord.
Yeah. So you're not always going to hit either. Yeah.
So yeah, it's just bad times.
Yeah, I think it joins Killing Blow and Armor Bane in pretty good.
I think it goes to the top of pretty good.
If you don't roll that 6, it's useless.
Yeah, it's the best of the wounding on 6s rules. It just sucks that the only way you can easily get it for a lot of armies is a 50-point magic item that has no other rules. If you get it on your Tomb Scorpion for absolutely no reason at all, then wow, yeah, absolutely. Tomb Scorpions are great. I've been punked by a Tomb Scorpion.
Yep.
I've had a Dark Elf Dragon Lord with a 4-up ward save fall over to one of these fuckers.
Yeah.
And they are 70 points. That's pretty cheap, he said saltily. The Brett version is serious. The Brett version is incredible.
Yeah, that's the way to go.
You also take Paymaster's Coin, and you've got a good number of attacks, and yeah, it's just a very good. And you also have Killing Blow as well, so you have both rules, and you have it on a lance, so it's just like the best of every world.
Yeah, it annoys me slightly the Monster Slayer doesn't just come with Killing Blow as well. It feels like if your sword is good enough to cut monster in half, it can cut that random infantry unit in half as well.
I guess it makes sense because it's not about the sword, right? It's about being specialized at killing specific things.
Well, I guess so,
yeah. But Motley Crew. Now, this is a rule that needs some summarizing. Motley Crew.
I've obviously highlighted, as everybody can see, I've highlighted various rules in here. Motley Crew, completely unhighlighted because it just doesn't make any sense to me. So I just trust my opponent knows how to use it and we move on.
I'll see if I can explain it to you. So there's 2 parts to Motley Crew, or there's 3 parts, I guess. Part 1, you don't have to be equipped with the same weapons and armor. You can do whatever you want. John says bin. Is that because you don't understand it? Because that's a fair response. I respect that. So you can have different weapons, you can have different armor, and then casualty removal as well is something we'll get to. So the way that this is going to work, different armor, is you take the majority save in the unit, and it doesn't specifically say it, but if you have 2 saves that are exactly the same, people just say take the better one, because that's the way that Warhammer kind of works, even though it's not explicitly spelled out. So what you do, let's take Black Orcs. No, let's take Minotaurs as an option. So you can get 1 Minotaur to a 2-up armor save through a combination of full plate magic item and a Beastman upgrade. I can't remember what they're called. They're like mutations, a Beastman mutation to give them Armored Hide 1, and you give them a shield. And you get this 1 model to a 2-up save. Okay, cool, but that's your sergeant. You can't allocate hits to sergeants. Well, then you have another character with light armor and a great weapon, and then so not a character, just a normal Minotaur, and you have a 3rd one with light armor and a hand weapon and shield. So you've got 3 different armor values.
Yeah.
So you take the better armor value, which means despite paying for 1 model to have a 2-up save, all 3 models have a 2-up save at all times, unless you challenge out and kill the Minotaur sergeant.
And so you don't have to allocate the 2-up save to the 2-up save model.
That's correct. You just assume
that to make it Blix Edwards, doesn't it?
Well,
that could be abused
outside of the abuse cases. It kind of makes sense, because otherwise it just slows the game down. So that's how the save bit works. Streck says no one understands Motley Crew. I'm hoping that you will after I've explained it. So the armor save is just you take the best save, and the way that you abuse that is you take a 3 model unit. If you can have 3 different saves and one of them is a 2 or 3 up. Or in the case of Black Orcs, which is the easiest unit to abuse this on, they all have full plate. You give half of them shields. The entire unit has a 3-up save. Then casualty removal. Against shooting, you just alternate. So you choose where you start, but then you take 1 of each. So let's say you've got 20 models, 10 with great weapons, 10 with shields. you take 3 casualties on your 3-up armor save. You go, cool, going to take a great weapon, then I'm going to take a shield, then I'm going to take a great weapon. You have to alternate. You choose where you start, but because you're alternating, you always take it, so you've always got the same number or more with the better save, and then you always get the good save. Nice and easy there. Job's a good one. And then weapons. Oh, sorry. In combat, it's just whatever's in the front rank. Which, so if you had your entire front rank with great weapons, they would. In combat, it's the front rank for the save that matters. It's not just all of the models. But let's say you had 4 great weapons, 4 shields, and 3 great weapons side and 2 shields. Then you'd have to remove 3 great weapons and 2 shields, and then other models step forwards. The way the place this can get kind of fucky is the standard bearer and the musician, because obviously they don't die until last, but they don't die because other models pick up the banner. I'm not even going to get into that because I don't know if there is a clean answer for it. Finally, weapons, you can just attack with whatever you fancy, depending what you're equipped with. That was a bit of like a dull explainer, but I hope that clarified things for people.
Yes. Oh, it clarifies. Yeah, for sure. I don't know why they've done it. I don't know what the point was, but yeah, I guess carry on.
Matthew says, I remember when you asked the Honest Wargamer Discord to hilarious bafflement all round. Hopefully that was slightly more informative. It's good. Like, Black Orcs abuse it really well. And it makes them a pretty okay infantry unit because they always have a 3-up save and half of them have great weapons and they have Furious Charge. Like, you need that level of stacking on an infantry unit at the moment to be amazing. It's easier in practice than theory. Yeah, exactly. And Black Orcs are the easiest way to do it. Cool. So Motley Crew is an S tier rule. It's so good. It's so good. If you can get multiple, like when the Beastman book comes out, if you can get multiple Minotaur units to have 2-up save on the unit champion, or at least like even a 3-up save, multiple 3-up saves, but for cheap, I will be running like MSU units of 3 Minotaurs, I think. Thanks for clarification.
That's where it really comes in. To give a unit that should only have a 6-up save, a 2-up save, is just insanely good. Like, you don't get that value from anything else.
John says, thanks for clarifying, but bin it anyway. That's super reasonable. I respect that. Move and shoot. Unlike what it says, it doesn't mean that you don't take penalties for moving and shooting. It means that you can march and shoot.
Why didn't they call it march and shoot?
Because they're fucking...
Who named this
rule? I don't know, Lewis, but let's move on. It's always good.
Well, yes, 100%.
Aptly named is move or shoot. What do you think happens if you move?
You can march.
You could march, but what do you think happens if you move at all?
You can't shoot, Edward.
That's good. Yep, in the bin. There we go. Move through cover. This is not as good as a rule as it should be. So, move through cover. You get to re-roll if you move through dangerous terrain. So, dangerous terrain, for each model that goes through it, you roll a d6. On a 1, you take a wound with no saves. Or you lose a wound, I should say. Move through cover lets you re-roll that 1. So, you rarely lose anything, unless you've got a big unit of infantry like dwarves, and then you've given them move through cover. But it's really nice to have. Here's the downside. You still, when you charge through or out of cover, or into cover, you still move the lowest of the 2d6. And that is dumb. That should be fixed. So I will say it's pretty good, but it's not always good because sometimes you want to charge. Sag. Multiple shots. You get more shots. You do suffer a -1 penalty when you're shooting, though. But you get more shots. The math says it's always good up until you're hitting on 6s for 1 shot or 7s for 2 shots. After that point, I think it's worse and you should go single shot. But in this case,
always
maybe I'm wrong with that. Maybe it is just always better. I haven't done the maths for a while. So we can just go always good because it's always good. You also lose your initiative still. Oh, yeah. For the disordered. I think pick the lowest for charges in the trees deserves more criticism. Hurt melee infantry a lot, especially for the dwarves with their really slow movement. It really does suck.
Yeah.
Immune to Psych is trash. Doesn't prevent you from getting -1 on terror break tests. You can't flee from charges. Can't get a beneficial panic. Fail panic to fall back in good order and reform. What's the upside? You don't have to take fear, panic, and terror. Where did we put it?
You got it pretty good.
Pretty good. Yeah, I'm happy with that. It does have downsides, but you can just slap it on things and not have to worry about psychology, which
Yeah,
I'm
having
pretty okay
watched
with.
my Blood Knights rout multiple units on the charge without having to touch them, I know that having immune to psychology would just stop that happening. So there are situations where it can absolutely save you.
Absolutely. So, multiple wounds. This means that instead of doing one wound, you do whatever the number in the X is, either 2 or 3 or D3, or whatever, or D6.
Hell yes.
It's great. It's so hard to get in this game. So when you can get it, delicious. Love to see it. Great stuff. Open order. At the end of
some other podcast, so I think this needs to be dragged along.
Oh, I see. At the end of a normal move, not a march, you get to make a free pivot. 90-degree pivot.
Yes.
Right,
yes.
You
lose the combat res, but
you do. But it's still okay. The units that you have it on are probably you'd rather have that pivot instead of the combat res. Poisoned attacks on a 6 to hit, you wound automatically. And you don't care about the toughness. So if they're T10 and you're strength 1, you can still wound because you're poisoned. You got any thoughts on this one?
Always good.
Nah. S tier, baby.
S tier. Well, because I think there's a combo where you've got things like Armor Bane, Killing Blow, Monster Slayer. If you've got poison attacks, you don't get any of those. So
no, but instead you can wound dragons en masse. And that has shaped the meta, I would argue, for the last sort of 4 or 5 months. Just like big units of teleporting, shooting, poison infantry are
fair enough.
Pretty okay.
Pretty okay.
You wouldn't know about it. It's the other undead army that abuses it. The one with bows.
I don't have guns.
Yeah. Speaking of rules that I hate, Ponderous.
Goodbye. Get in the bin.
You take more penalties for moving and shooting, and as I said before, the worst thing about it is I can never remember whether it's Cumberson or Ponderous that does the thing that I've just said. It's it exists, and I hate it for existing. Quick shot. You do not take the -1 for moving and shooting, and you can stand and shoot no matter how close your opponent is.
Always good.
I think I would put that into S tier. Just like not taking penalties.
Quick shot though. Like what quality shooting are we?
So it lets Iron Drakes are a good one. Mm-hmm. So you just can't get out of charging these fuckers. Not taking penalties for moving and shooting is really nice. So if you've got it on short bows, even though short bow's not amazing, like your job of moving around and doing some like plinky fire becomes more achievable because you're not taking penalties. You can fire and flee at any distance is really nice, especially if you combo that with feigned flight. It's just great, like especially if you're combining it with, sometimes you get it with move and shoot as well, and then you can march and quick shot. It's good stuff. Gutter runners throwing weapons have it. Love that for me.
Fine. Fair enough.
Matthew says hatred brackets Ponderous. Yeah, absolutely. I reroll all of my rants against them. Rallying cry, a rule that people forget exists up until they fail their first rally test and then go,
at which point it's too late.
Yes, although realistically I'm going to let them do it a lot of the time, depending on the situation. If it's like the only target it could have gone to, then it's fine. Rallying cry during the command subphase, so before anything else, if the character with it is not engaged in combat, they can nominate a single friendly unit within their command range, they make a rally test, and then they get to rally again in the normal rally step, and it means you can rally a wizard and have them cast spells. You can't rally a unit and have them charge, because it specifically says that you can't.
Pretty good.
It's pretty good.
Yeah. I like it. Caveats around needing to be in command range, and you only make the test, you don't automatically pass it. So there's a few steps you've got to follow, but you wouldn't be unhappy if you had it.
Yeah, rallying cry before the magic phase is super clutch. That's super true. I don't like running away with my wizard, but sometimes it happens, and if I get to rally, amazing. And it does promote that sort of mixed arms where you're like, I should probably bring a character that wants to hit stuff as well. All right, what have we got next? Random attacks. This sounds like it's a bad thing. I'm going to put it at the bottom of pretty good, and then I'm going to justify it. It's because yes, you can have a low number of attacks, but the thing that has random attacks usually has, like, if it's on a unit, it's often D3 plus 1, looking at Forsaken. So your floor is like 2 per model, which is pretty okay. Or it's a big thing, like Help It Abomination, for example, or Giant Spawn. And then you've also got D6 Stomps. So it's kind of just like, it's not, I don't want to say it's good. It's not like a positive, but you can spike and go super high.
Yeah.
And the chance of you rolling low is pretty unlikely because you've got that and you've got Stomps. That's my pitch.
Yeah, I mean, I think inherently the rule is neutral. The thing that makes or breaks the rule is the number in the brackets. So
Sure.
the rule isn't positive or negative. It's
Yeah.
literally random attacks 1 or whatever. It's
you can't have random attacks 1.
You know what I
then
mean?
It would just be
like,
a normal attack.
D3 or whatever. D3 minus 2, for example, would be shit. So therefore, you wouldn't want it. Exactly. Well, unless you roll a 1 when you're attacking yourself.
I think those sort of rules are always to a minimum of 1. But anyway, we're splitting hairs here. Yeah, you're right. I think
that's the long way of saying I agree with you.
You pretty much always see like D6 plus 1 or D3 plus 1.
Yeah.
There will be some exceptions, but like I think it's fine, and the potential to spike is funny and spicy. Here's a rule that is good: random movement. Now this can fuck you over, but the way it works, in the random movement phase, or the compulsory move phase, I should say, you roll the number of dice. Sometimes it's 2d6. If it is, your unit is bad. Other times it's 3d6. If it is, your unit is good. You move up to that distance. The way that it works is they can't march and charge. They can wheel to change direction, but they can't do any other maneuvers. And you only roll once per unit, obviously. However, you can charge a unit. The unit cannot react that you charge or like randomly move into. And you don't have to have line of sight into the unit. So you could be behind a hill, behind a wood, you can be facing the wrong way. And as long as you end up in the right arc, so say you're behind a unit. If you've got a unit here and you're here facing that way, as long as you've got the movement to go like this and end in the correct arc of them, you can charge them. It's so hard to avoid them. They shut down a lot of the like stupid get out of charge arc skirmish shenanigans that I do. So I respect them very highly. However, they can just roll a 4 on 3d6 and move barely anywhere.
I think that's what leaves them in kind of crap. I think in theory, everything you said there is great, but you're going to have to A, get yourself into a situation where that is something that's useful, and then B, you've got to roll a high enough number that thing could then actually occur. So for all of those steps to apply to make it slightly better than just a normal unit, I just think it's not. And the fact that you can, if you line up at the start of the game and your first 2 turns you roll a double 1 and a double 1, you spent 2 turns moving 4 inches. Yeah. And the fact that that's a possibility, I think, makes it kind of crap.
The way that it works is if your unit has a 2d6 random move, it's a bad unit.
Yeah.
If it has 3d6, it's probably a good unit.
Yeah.
Because you get a lot more like
it just reduces
reliability.
The variance, doesn't it? So,
yeah. The potential for 18 freaks people out, that's true. And also the no charge reaction is huge. And the charge out of line of sight. Yeah. On good units, random movement is very good. So I'm going to say it's still just pretty good. I'm not going to argue for it higher. But I'm just going to say the opposite end of pretty good to random attacks.
Fair enough.
The thing that it's good on, though, they're really good. Like Gigantic Spawn, which are tanky enough to be like, oh, I sat out in the open for a turn and took some shooting. Well, that sucks. But I've got 2 of them, so one of them probably made it in, and the other one is now there to mess around. Yeah, very solid. Regeneration. This is followed by a number, which is normally a 6 or a 5. Sometimes you can get up to regeneration 4. You can never get a regeneration 3, as far as I'm aware. And even getting regeneration 4 requires a banner that gives you plus to regen, I think. Yeah. Anyway, getting off piste. It is a 3rd save. You've got armor save, you've got ward save, you've got regen. You can take them all. It's like a ward save, but it's turned off by killing blow, cleaving blow, monster slayer, and if you're flammable, fire. Which sounds like a lot of things, but realistically isn't.
Not that many things, yeah.
If you've got regen, you're probably actually rolling it. Here's the problem: any saves passed by regen still count for combat res. That's how they've balanced it. I think always good.
Yeah, I think there's an argument to put it in S tier.
Okay.
I think even with the combat res,
Mhm.
okay, for undead, that can be annoying, but
Yeah.
ultimately your model is still alive. So one model can just pass 5 regens. Yes, it's 5 combat res, but ultimately the model's still there. So
Yeah.
and if you're not taking unstable casualties, it's even better, because sometimes you can just kind of, especially if you've got a decent leadership, you can just ignore it, can't you? So
Yeah.
I'm arguing for S tier for regeneration. That's
I'm
not a full layer of
happy to put it there. I don't know if it lives there realistically. Like Troll Horde is the big sort of abuser of regen, because you get a regen and then you get to re-roll it, so you're taking like less than half of the damage you should be. But because it counts for combat res, what you'll find playing Troll Horde quite often is you'll kill more model, like you'll do more damage than your opponent. Like you'll maybe lose 4 wounds and they'll take like 10, and you're like, amazing.
Yeah.
And then you go to combat res, you're like, so I lose by 4, which is a bizarre situation to be in. But it is obviously a very solid rule, and I'm always happy to have it. And if you've got a dragon, having a layered, like triple layered save is pretty OP. So.
Yeah, because you've got to think as well, for something like getting hit in the face by a cannon, that 5 up going, yep, nope, not doing any damage. Goodbye.
Yep. Regimental unit goes with detachment. It's the other half of the thing we explained earlier.
Yep. Why they're separate, I have no idea, but there we are.
Yeah. Requires 2 hands. You can't use a shield or a second weapon with this. And like, it's technically a negative. I don't even want to put it. I don't even want to put it anywhere.
It's just a thing that happens, isn't it?
It is just a thing that happens.
It's kind of crap, I suppose.
Yeah.
I think there's probably that.
It is a downside, but here's the thing.
Weapons that normally have it are normally all right.
They're normally the best weapons in the game. Yeah, you're like, oh, it's a great weapon. What's the, like, it's strength +2, AP +2, and it's armor bane 1. You're like, damn. And how many points is that? 4 points for a character? 1 point for a unit a lot of the time? Woo, that's pretty spicy. Okay, what's the downside? Well, you strike last, and you're using both your hands, so you can't use a shield. I'll still take the grey weapon. So, yeah, I guess kind of crap is fine. But, like, the things it's attached to are good, so I feel weird putting it there. Oh, this next one is an absolute treat.
Best rule in the game.
Sorry, the Winslow says great weapon, the best magic item in the game. Yeah, like it's your character. Do you want them to have a great weapon, or do you want them to have Ogre Blade? The tier list of USRs as part of your mama jokes requires 2 hands as S tier behind large target. That's very good. That's very good. We don't condone shaming of mothers. Something your mama. I was going to spin that into a funny joke, and then I failed at the final hurdle, which was making a funny your mama joke. So where's it gone? Reserve move. That's the rule we're looking at. Unless it charged, marched, or fled during the movement phase of its turn, a unit with this special rule may make a reserve move at the end of its own shooting phase after the shooting has been resolved. It just moves as normal. It can't march, but it can do maneuvers. Oh, it's so good. It's so good. This is S tier. This lets you like, the fact that you can't march as undead suddenly becomes not a problem, because you have a spell that's going to give everything the ability to reserve move, so they're just moving twice. Yes, yeah, I do that quite often. But like, if you're undead, you probably should get this off, because you're going to have like a Mortis engine or 2, so you're casting at +4 or 5, like 5 or 6, or you are Mortuary Cult, so you can cast at +7. Like, you're just going to get the spell off, right? Like, it's just going to go off. Oh, it's sorry, +8, I should say. Reserve move S tier. Hell yeah, it's so good. I love it on Undead. I love it on Wood Elves, where you've got a unit of Glade Guard, and you put your characters into there, you move out, you do some shooting and spells, and then you move back in. The Fire and Fade, like, Tau playstyle, where you just go, like, forwards, and then you Ruby Ring a Ruin or something like that. Great stuff. Matthew says, I feel about this rule the way others feel about Motley Crew. As in, like, you love it or you hate it. That could be either. Ghouls with Mortis and Dance Macabre, baby, yeah. They go pretty speedy, eh? Pretty speedy. S for stop fucking moving away from me. Very good. Very good.
Or S for shit, they've moved a lot faster towards me than I thought they were going to.
Speaking of rules that begin with an S that are stupidly good, Scouts. After deployment is done, so after you've put all your characters down, but before vanguards, you roll off, and then in order you alternate deploying scouts. It isn't in the rules. Some places play that scouts don't count towards the +1 for going first. If they don't, scouts are in S tier. If they do, scouts are in like B. It makes a big difference. But like I'm playing armies with 4 drops and then scouts, which means that I consistently get the +1 to go first and then go second anyway.
In a game that is so focused on positioning, being able to put a model anywhere on the board.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's so good. I really love it. You also get to go into your opponent's deployment zone, which is weird but funny. You don't expect to see it. You know, you have to be 12 inches away from them. That's the rule. So you can't get, like, scout shooting units often have a range of 24 inches with their guns looking at you. Repeater crossbows, for example. So you can't be in close range and not move on turn 1 shooting. But, I mean, rangers can, I guess, with their 30-inch range crossbows. It's just a good rule. Like, It's so good. I'm a huge fan of scouts. All there is to say, really. Depending on your pack, if you don't count them as a +1 to deployment up here, if you do, they're still pretty good, but they're not as good. But also they're flexible because you don't have to declare them until in the deployment, I believe.
Yeah, it may be deployed after all units from both armies.
Yeah, sometimes you don't even want to do it because you're like, I want that +1.
Yeah.
So yeah, good stuff there. Shield wall. Once per game during a turn, it was charged. A unit with a special rule. There's a raid in close order formation. Pew, 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 pew. There's little fireworks behind me. And is equipped with and chooses to use shields, may give ground instead of falling back in good order. This is normally comboed with stubborn, which means that you auto fall back in good order no matter what you roll.
Yeah,
I think you don't even roll; you just auto fall back in good order. Where this doesn't work is if you're not stubborn and you are double outnumbered. So instead of falling back in good order, you flee. However, it's really good. You can be like pretend undead for a turn, basically. It's good.
Yep.
I don't want to say always good, but I think it's the top of pretty good.
Yeah. Once per game, which is a bit annoying. So
but you just want to blunt the charge once, and then you're like assuming we're talking about dwarves, for example, you just like take the charge on your iron breakers with your 2-up rerollable save if you're buffed by the anvil, which is that's such a hard brick to move. But yeah, no, really solid rule, good to have. Skirmishers. We don't have time to explain every skirmish interaction, and I don't understand every skirmish interaction. And if you think you do, unfortunately, you're wrong. I'm sorry to break it to you. Skirmish is the most complicated set of rules in the game. If you think you understand skirmish, then try playing skirmish into skirmish. You do not understand. It is a nightmare. I'm sorry. It's S tier.
It's a set of rules, isn't it?
It's probably the best rule in the game.
Yeah.
Sorry, behind close order. It's so strong. You get 360-degree line of sight. You can obviously charge in any direction. You can move in any direction. In a game where like positioning is super key, you can get out of charge arc super well. You are just so mobile, and characters have this inherently, which means you can make really tanky characters such as like a Glade Lord and a Stag, or a Royal Pegasus character. And have them unattached to a unit or in a unit of skirmishers in the case of Pegasus Knights, and then you can just like fire them all around. They're super hard to interact with. They're just real good. Anything you want to say on skirmishers?
No, hate them. They need a rewrite. Let's carry on.
I love them. They need a rewrite. Stomp attacks. You know what? If there was a rule in the game that was going to unseat skirmishers for the number 1, force opponent to charge the nearest model. Yeah. Like, you can still redirect an opponent with skirmishers. It's just harder to do.
Fix that issue at all, have they?
Yeah.
You should be able to choose, as the charging player, you should be able to choose where you want to face and who you want to target first.
Winslow said skirmish wouldn't be so bad if it wasn't on so many high move units. Skirmish wouldn't be so bad if it wasn't in the game. Moving on. Stomp attacks. You get an X, and then you roll a number of auto hits at initiative strikes last. At the strength of the thing that is doing the stomp, and if you're a behemoth, which you probably are, you get AP2.
Yeah.
So
why doesn't it say this in the rule? Why do you have to go to the behemoth section?
Because they have a special rule. Thunderstomps. Yeah. This book could do with some copy editing, but yes, you get stomps. Normal stomps are kind of whatever. If you've got like a Wyvern or whatever, and they're just like D3 with no AP, you're like, yeah, sure. And then you've got a dragon which does D6 with AP2, and you're like, this is the best thing ever, because they're also like strength 7, so they win basically everything in the game on 2s. It's good.
It depends what model it's on. It's either pretty good or always good, really, isn't it?
I think for me here, like, yes,
well,
technically,
if you get it on a Griffin, it's just useless. And why?
Technically, there are models where it is less good. On an Imperial Griffin, it's still pretty good, like the
on a
Behemoth
Pegasus or something like that.
On a Pegasus, like, no, Pegasus stomps are dumb because it's just additional hits that you shouldn't be getting on a model.
Yeah.
Like, you're just like, why have you got more output on this character? And it just like tips the combat res slightly in the favor, and you're like, oh, I just lose the game then, I guess. Sorry, I got flashbacks to playing against Bretonnian players. I wonder why I'm going to play Bretonnians. But yeah, like on dragons, this is the main reason. No, this is one of the two main reasons, the other being the layered saves, that dragons are so good. Like, you just can't have a bad round of combat if you've got thunder stomps. Like D6 or D6 plus 1 thunder stomps, you just can't have a bad round of combat. Because you're like, oh, I missed with some of my hits. Oh, bugger. Oh, and then I rolled 5 stomps.
Yeah, in the case of Zombie Dragon, it's really all it's got in terms of attacks, given its weapon skill is so crap.
Yeah, no thunder stomps for monstrous creatures because fuck you. I'm okay with that on the basis of I don't want more things to be thunder stomping. That seems like a bad time for me and everyone involved. Dragon Ogres get stomps as well, just like strength 5, no AP, but they've got armor bane 1. Sure, why not? Yeah, stomps are super good. Speaking of things that are super good, strikes first.
Hell yeah,
this is a rule where you strike first at initiative 10. It's always good. Strikes last. This is a rule where you strike last. Your initiative 1. You do get charge bonuses. It's just kind of crap, isn't it?
Yeah.
In fact, no, I guess this goes and dragged along because you're like, oh, this is always a downside. It does come with great weapons, which we talked about, that they're good enough that you take the penalties. But, yeah. Brian says stomps ignore Storm of Ash and Effigy of Mork. That's true, so you don't take the minuses to hit, but your Black Orc on Wyvern shouldn't be dying to that with its like 3-up armor save and 5-up ward and 5-up regen. Or maybe you just go for the regen. I can't remember how the build specifically goes for that. Yeah, you don't have the ward save. You got a 3-up armor save and a 5-up regen. You shouldn't take realistically more than a wound at best from the stomps. On average dice, of course. Stubborn. Me.
Stick it with shield wall.
Stick it with shield wall. Yeah, we talked about this.
The
way Stubborn works, the first time this unit is required to make a break test, it can choose not to and auto fall back in good order. So you can't get a give ground, but you auto fall back in good order. So it gives you like some reliability. You know what's going to happen in that combat. You don't become stubborn if a character who's stubborn joins a non-stubborn unit. And you can't use it, so that characters don't make units stubborn, basically. And also, even if you're double outnumbered and you would flee, it doesn't matter. You still just fall back in good order. Yeah. And I think for me, that tips it from pretty good to always good. Because you're like, even if you're being run down by fear-causing skeletons, you still just like, okay, we'll have another go next turn.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The thing stopping it from being straight fire for me is that you can't give ground. Obviously, you combo with shield wall and then you do, but like on its own, you don't.
Yeah.
And it's a once per game thing, and you have to use it on the first one. So if you choose not to, because you're like, I lost by 1, I've got initiative, like I've got leadership 10, I'm just going to try and give ground.
Yeah, I think that might be what for me might drop it into pretty good rather than always good, because there'll be times where you just lose an annoying combat, and then when you actually need it, you've already spaffed it.
I think in practice, it ends up just being like, you just use it the first time and you're like, this is just a bonus that my unit has, as opposed to anything else. And if it's like, realistically, you're not wasting it, because if it was something that you're like, oh, that was such a small thing, it didn't matter, you were probably going to win the combat anyway, right?
Yeah.
In sort of like real world terms. Stupidity. Fucking
get it dragged along. Yeah, fucking useless. Hate it.
Here's the thing. I will still play multiple units of Cold One Knights. at tournaments with the intent to win the tournament.
If you've got the right leadership, you can
if you got leadership
work around
10, yeah. It makes me sad that they don't. There's no way to like re-roll it though. It's just outside of big smarts, obviously, for the troll horde, and they have worse leadership, but they have a re-roll. You still fail that, like because you have so many units with stupidity, you still fail some. But yeah, it's there. It's fine.
It
And
does
by
have-
fine, I mean I hate it.
The rule does have the best piece of flavor text in it, in
Oh
any
yeah.
of the rules in the book.
Mhm.
In that, when a stupid unit joins a character that does have it,
Yeah.
because they're with their mates and their mates are stupid, stupidity is contagious, which I think is a wider political and social. They're made by the big rule book.
Easy now.
They put in, and then when they did the copy edit, forgot to take it out and just left it there.
Yeah, Cold War Knights will get veteran in their upcoming journal. That'd be amazing. I wish Dark Elves would get a journal. That'd be a lot of fun. Swift Stride
Yes,
up there again for one of the best rules in the game. You get like if you have Swift Stride, you should never get charged by a unit without Swift Stride. You should always win that, unless you somehow fail a charge and are left like hanging on dice. Sometimes that happens. But you get plus 3-inch range on your declarable charge, and you get plus D6 on your roll. And that's just so good, because you're already going movement plus the highest of 2d6, which is usually pretty consistent. So you're like, that's a 4 or a 5 most of the time. And then you've got just a 1d6 to spike onto there. And yes, that can go wrong. But across 3 dice, at least one of them is going to be a good number, usually.
Yeah, 100%.
John says, why is a vampire count leadership 8? Moving on.
Yes,
we don't
John,
talk about that.
I shall I have a rant, Ed, or shall I save that for another? Why is leadership 8? Who decided that?
We're coming up an hour 45, so let's save it for another time, because that is a fair rant to have, and I don't want to clip your wings on it. Terror. So Terror, if Terror using a Terror causing unit charges something, that unit has to make a leadership test. If they are failed, it must flee. So if you cause fear, you're immune to terror because it downgrades it to fear.
Yeah.
And then also, if you win combat as a terror causer, your opponent takes their leadership at -1 leadership, even if they cause terror themselves, which is probably not intended, but it's poorly written. And also, you cause fear if you cause terror. How do you feel about this one?
Models that cause terror are immune to terror, so they don't suffer the rule. But the key with that -1 is that it's not a -1 to combat res; it's a -1 to your leadership characteristic.
Okay, yeah.
Your chance of going from a fallback in good order to a break and flee,
that's big.
That's where it's massive. And I think a lot of people might get that wrong in that they just add 1 to the combat res. It's not. It's actually you modify the characteristic, which is when you combo it with the necromancy spells, which also modify the leadership characteristic. The chance of a unit breaking rather than just falling back in good order from an undead unit beating them, it's got terror, obviously, is smashingly high compared to what you would normally have. So,
especially if they're leadership 7, if you get them down to a 6, that's such a big break.
Yeah, leadership 6. Chuck in spiritual vortex, then their actual base leadership is leadership 5 at that point. So your chance of getting for Vigo is pretty low.
Terror Bomb's a legitimate list style, and one I've never played, so I should probably give it a go.
Yeah, it's good for just being able to break people on the charge as well. Just to say, I'm charging you. They want to hold because they think they've got a chance, and then they just decide to flip the board, or you run them down.
Yeah, a lot of the time I find that the things that will flee are the ones that want to run away from terror causes anyway, because they're not often big beasties.
Yeah.
But what it is good at is it shuts down fire and flee, because you just flee if you fail. So that sucks. I put that in always good, because I think it is
100%.
Timber. This is a fun rule. When this model is reduced to 0 wounds, you roll off, you and your opponent, you choose one of the arcs, front, flank, or rear, for it to fall into. And if there's a unit in the arc and in base contact, they take D6 hits at strength user and AP -1. So a giant falls over, you roll off, the player controlling the giant wins. They decide to fall onto the unit that just killed it. They roll a D6, they get 6 hits. They are strength 6 because the giant is strength 6. They're AP 1 because it's a timber roll. Hell yeah. Love that. Yeah. Nemo says, I think it's unfair to combine all the negative rules together. I understand what you're saying, but just for logistics purposes, like, I don't know that there's much else that we can really talk about. It does get to, yeah. Like, we've got a tier for, like, this is a bit of a negative, but sometimes there's a U for it. And then we've got stuff that's just like, this is just a rule because it's always negative. So I don't think there's an easier way to break it up without just adding additional admin, because we're already taking up the entire screen. Yeah, so Timber's pretty good. Like, it's just
kind of crap. You've got to win the roll off. You've got to have units in base contact. So many things happen.
I think it's kind of good, right? Because most big things are going to die in combat.
Yeah.
Realistically, we're playing fantasy. We're not, like, obviously, yes, some people, me, play lots of shooting, but we do still end up in combat. And yes, it's a 50-50, but it's kind of just an additional. And you're like, oh, do I, like, oh god, if this roll like falls on me, I'm fucked. I just take some real punishment.
But the thing is, you've got a 50-50 to even get it off.
Yeah.
Then when you get it off, you can still just roll a 1 and end up doing 1 damage.
Yeah.
Or worst case scenario, you're in a multi-combat and it ends up falling on your own troops.
That is true. That is true. My argument is, just look at it as like some conditional stomps that if you die, you get it. Like, yeah, if you die, it's whatever. I don't know. And it's also fun. Winslow says Timber is the I will never remember this exists category. I think you will, because if you're the sort of person who brings that sort of model that has Timber, you're the sort of person who enjoys that sort of rule. And
you'll shout it when your model dies.
I've had people remember it when I've killed their big things, and then I'd be like, oh hell yeah, let's have a roll off. This is fun. So I'm gonna pull the I control the mouse card and just say it's staying there because I like the rule. This is a dictatorship, remember. Unbreakable. Also me. If a unit with a special rule loses a round of combat, it makes a break test, and instead of making a break test, it auto gives ground. And you can't join units that are unbreakable if you're not, and vice versa, which almost never matters apart from when it does. You're the undead player. What do you think?
Yep, pretty much always good. I think there are situations where maybe you want to flee, fall back in good order, and fall through stuff, etc. But when you are when you are playing undead, it's your whole army, so you you're layering up yourselves effectively. So I don't think the niche case scenario where you might want to flee is enough to push it from always good to pretty good. So I think I'd put it there.
Yeah, it also doesn't stop you from fleeing as a charge reaction.
No,
unfortunately, pretty much every model with this rule also has immune to psychology, which does stop it.
Yeah.
But if they ever forget that, it's it'll be there.
Yeah.
Unstable. Me now. I don't have a job. If you lose a round of combat, you lose a wound for each point of combat res by which it loses, and it goes to units first and then characters. Oh no, sorry, it goes 1 wound to each model first, and then it goes to characters, which doesn't matter unless you have unstable multi-wound infantry with characters attached, which is not super rare.
It's just always bad, isn't it? Obviously, it usually comes with unbreakable as the combo, which is nice, but the unstable rule in and of itself is just always bad.
It's like requires 2 hands. You're like, I mean, sure, it's a downside, but it comes with something that's good. But we'll just chuck it down there for speed. Vanguard. This is a rule that I don't typically run Vanguard units, so I quite often roll after everything's deployed and be like, who goes first? And then my opponent's like, I've got a Vanguard. And I'm like, oh, sorry. I forgot that was a rule because I don't typically play them. Vanguard. After deployment, but before the roll-off, you make a Vanguard move. It's a normal move. You can't march, but you can make other maneuvers. If you both have Vanguards, you roll off to see who goes first. It's a free move at the start of the game. That's strong.
Yep.
I love it. I'm a big fan. I think it's always good. The only thing that's bad about it is that I forget it exists. And then you're like, oh, shit, I should have done my Vanguard moves.
Yeah.
Which, depending on what you want to do with them, like, would be a bit gamey because you're like,
it's good, but you'd rather have Scout. Let's be honest.
Not always, because Scout you can't charge on turn 1. That is a downside. So if you're on like a close deployment, obviously the diagonal deployment, if you have Vanguard looking at you Tomb Scorpions, you can consistently turn 1 charge someone if they get too close to you. And also you have more flexibility with it. because it's done after scouts. So if your opponent has scouts, you can see where their scouts goes, and then you can move. Scouts is usually better, but it doesn't affect the +1 roll off if your TO rules that scouts do count towards it. So maybe we'll see that clarified soon. We'll see. Herald Ember, hell yeah. And if you can buy a banner of it, such as the Pegasus and or Heralds of Chaos, the Exiles banner, I should say, and then you can just give a unit Vanguard that probably shouldn't be allowed to have Vanguard. It's pretty okay. You can get a unit of Chaos Knights into charge range on turn 1 if your opponent. Can you? No, you can't, because they can only declare a charge 60 inches. If your opponent also Vanguards forwards, you can get in charge range. Anyway, moving on.
Veteran.
You may, if the majority of the models in the unit, so that's good. If the majority of the models in the unit have the special rule, finish the sentence, the unit may re-roll any failed leadership tests. This is not break tests specifically, so you still need a BSB to re-roll your break tests, but you get to re-roll leadership tests. This doesn't pass from unit to character if they have to do like a test on their unmodified leadership. So you can't have veteran Iron Guts and then have the the Cauldron that gives you a regen save. You can't get a reroll there on your Butcher.
Yeah.
It's just good though. You just reroll all of your leadership tests.
Yeah.
It's just real good. It's one of the main reasons to go Exiles. You'll give up a ward save for this. Obviously super strong if you can get it on characters who do make leadership tests for a buff, such as, let's say, the Falconhorn. It's saddest FAQ for warrior priests. Yeah. Like almost across the board, it wouldn't be game breaking if it was imparted from unit to character, with the exception of Grand Army Bretonians. Although I don't think they can get veteran. Anyway, it's just good. Mark of the Undivided. It's not quite veteran, but Mark of the Undivided plus. Yeah, I understand now.
Yeah,
it's better than what Chaos have. Yeah, hey, just always good. I think.
Yeah, chuck it in there.
Well, is it an S tier rule actually?
I don't know if it went break tests, I think you'd have it as S tier rule, but because you can't actually use it to save yourself in combat, it is probably that just restricts it slightly, I think, in my mind.
Okay, sure. And you still have to take the test, you just get a re-roll it. Okay, sure. I'm happy with always good. Volley fire. This is a rule that might come up more in the future, but at the moment you just might want to shoot at large targets. Or you're playing the Royal Host brick and you always get to volley fire.
Yeah.
I'm talking about it. What does it do? When a unit with this special rule makes a shooting attack, half of the models, rounding up, in each rank other than the front rank, can shoot. You can't volley fire if you moved or if you stand and shoot. So if you stand still, you get more shots with your bows. That's basically the rule.
Happy days.
I think it's pretty good.
Pretty good.
It's not always good.
You'll take it.
You don't get stand and shoot, and you don't get it if you move, unless you're playing Royal Host. But yeah, it's fine. It's okay. I don't hate it. Warband. Here's a fucking incredible rule that people sometimes forget half of. First of all, Warband, unless fleeing, you get a positive modifier to the leadership characteristic of the unit equal to its current rank bonus. This is often comboed with Horde, so often you're getting +3 to your leadership. Yes, you're playing an army with a worse leadership. So, that kind of sucks already. But you can get, like, Skaven and Goblins up to leadership 10 pretty
quite
okay.
Happily. Yeah.
It's solid. It's really good. However, you can't use this modifier to a leadership to make a restraint test. That's something you need to be aware of, because you're like, right, leadership 10. Okay, I've won combat. I'm going to try and restrain. Fuck, I rolled an 8. That's bad, because I'm leaning on the Horde Warband combo. That you do, however, get to re-roll your charges if you've got Warband on the majority of the unit. It's pretty good.
I didn't know that. I've completely forgotten that re-roll charge bit. It's funny when you just reread these things.
Yes, yeah. So sometimes you get it on a unit that you're like, Warband doesn't matter. I'm not getting a leadership, like a rank bonus on my Orc boss on Withen. Oh, but I could re-roll my charges, you say. That's pretty good. Yeah, it's just great. I think this is always good for me. This is like here or something. Yeah, it's a very good rule. Huge for boars. Yeah, 100%. Really nice for boar boys.
Ooh,
Especially
yeah.
if you run like charging into a terrain or something. You're like, fuck, I rolled a 1 and a 4. Let me try again. Okay, I rolled 2 3s. This is better. This is better than I was at. And then we've got a final one, Warp Spawned. A model with this special rule cannot make a regeneration save against a wound caused by a magical attack. In addition, non-warp spawned characters can't join warp spawned units and vice versa.
Downward dragged along, finishing on a high.
Yes, absolutely. Obviously, that does come with the fact that these units will have like some sort of defense against non-magical attacks, but
Yeah.
the rule itself is only a downside. I think we've absolutely killed it there. We've come in at just under 2 hours, and realistically, we only spent about an hour 45 talking about the rules there, which, given that there's like, I think 74 of them, I said, it's either 64 or 74. It's so many.
There was enough, Ed.
Yeah, there were a fair few. So good job. Yeah, the big teal book, the BTB. Thank you for joining me on this wondrous adventure. That was the end of the sentence.
Good. Bye.
Oh no, I was gonna say, have you got anything else to?
No,
No?
You're gonna cut me off. You're gonna cut me off. I know you're gonna do it. You do it every time.
I actually wasn't ready to end the stream because this is a tier list. Normally at the end of these, we do just see if there's anything else that needs to be done. We super haven't put anything in order. Is there anything that people want to change? Anything you want to change in the orders? Anything that chats wants to change? We have got some Happy New Year's coming in. Happy New Year to you all. Obviously, we've got less people than normal, but we've still got a healthy viewer base. Thank you for chilling and hanging out with us on this New Year's evening. I hope you had a good one and gave you something to do if you weren't wanting to go out. Tiedemann says, thanks for dragging us along on this video. That's very
Dragging us along.
Yeah. So any ones that you want to adjust on the tier list, or closing thoughts, any Happy New Year's that you want to give out? I know you're a Grinch, but
Yeah, no, well, Happy New Year to everybody. Welcome to 2025 in 2 hours' time. For those of you that are already there, hello from the future. Hope you've been enjoying your 2025 already.
Yep.
It's been a pleasure to do a tier list with you, Ed. I think we've got it perfect. I don't think there's anything that's wrong there. It's interesting to see all of the movement-based ones basically in S tier or always good at absolute worst. And then you start getting all the damage ones start coming in always good. And then obviously you get into the kind of middling ones that do little bits of different things in pretty good, and then it all deteriorates from there. But it's just interesting.
That is interesting. All of the damage ones, apart from poison, like anything that's a 6 to wound is like, it's pretty okay, I guess, at best. Winslow says, Happy New Year's to you and those close order to you all. He didn't say that, but I thought that was funnier than what he typed.
He capitalized the C, so I think it's meant to be.
It was deliberate, yeah. Lovely stuff. Well, it's been great. Thank you all. I am going to start streaming on Wednesdays, but I'm not going to start tomorrow. With it being New Year's Day, I don't think there's going to be many people around. I'm going to wait until you're all back at work and, make the most of. So I'll be putting some posts up on Discord, I'm sure, asking what people want to see. Thank you for everyone who did weigh in on the poll that I put up. And it's been a great year for the channel. And 2025 is going to be even greater.
Hell yeah.